Welcome to the latest edition of the Business Spotlight podcast series. I'm joined today by Thomas Bidaux of ICO Partners based in Brighton. Thomas, welcome to the call.
Hello, thank you for having me.
You're welcome, Thomas. Tell us a little bit about ICO Partners and what it is that you do.
Sure. So we are an agency. We work with video game companies, mostly game studios and game publishers, and we help them with their marketing strategy and the execution of such strategies, mostly video game PR, communications. We help them work with content creators on YouTube and Twitch.
Okay, and where does your passion for the video gaming industry come from? Where did you get started in that?
I like games. If you
Yes.
listen to the podcast, you don't see, but if you watch the podcast, there's a number of board games behind me, which is kind of like where the first gaming passion come from.
Yeah.
But then, it went into video games as well. So
Yes.
I think I was lucky enough to get an early career in the space, developing like a specific specialty in working on online games, MMORPGs, and these sort of things in France. And so then I was able to get my gaming passion into a business.
Okay. And we had an interesting discussion off camera before we started this podcast, and you explained that your company, you've got a sizable team around you now and operating out of different locations, but you also described that the business has been built from a mixture of happy accidents and opportunities. So explain a little bit to the view about what you mean by that phrase.
Absolutely. So we set up the business with my business partner back in 2008, which was a great year to start a new business, economy and all that.
Yes.
And we started as two people doing consulting. And when we started, we had a bit of a appetite to work with lots of different people. We've just been working with a large publisher. We were working on our own games, and we wanted to work with everybody's games. Whoever wanted to work with us, we wanted to have the opportunity to support them, help them. And so it was a very simple, maybe naive look into these things. But what happened with us is that first we had built a very good reputation. We had a lot of initial clients that helped us kind of like kickstart all this. But we also had, like you mentioned, what I call happy accidents, where we run into someone who said, well, we have this problem that we can't solve. Can you help us? And we had a bit of an attitude to say yes, whenever we could. And we developed the business that we have now into a direction that we had not envisioned at all when we started. So I don't have a marketing background, but marketing is the biggest thing, the biggest activity we have at the moment. We do a lot of marketing for a lot of different clients in a lot of different ways. So I've learned a lot about that, but I also learned about using my other skills, which is more around strategy and high level thinking for bringing projects to market, and look at the opportunities, the demands that were not supplied in the market, and build that. A very simple example is that when we started to do the first work on public relations for a client, it came from an international client who wanted to develop in Europe, and they wanted to have an agency that does that. And all the agencies were basically working with network of agencies in Europe. So you would have a French agency, a German agency, Polish, Spanish, Italian, British, and they hated that. They wanted to have a single one-stop shop. And that's the first thing that we built. We built for them like a one-stop shop PR agency that would be able to do all of Europe from one stop. And the reason we did it was not because we had an appetite for that. The reason we did it was that one client had a very specific demand that we thought would be echoing with other people. And after the first contract with them, it came clear that people were coming to us because of that model that was not popular or existing at the time, and we had a unique offering. So people were not comparing our prices. They were looking at, oh, I don't want to work with 5, 6 different agencies. I want to work with one agency for all of Europe. I will work with ICO and Thomas and the team. And so that's one happy accident, but we've done a number of things over the years that are all a combination of those happy accidents, that opportunities that we took together and took further and built a business on. And that's been very fortunate for us. But it was, it's not always intuitive to do it that way. I think that's a bit of a counterintuitive look into, well, I'm setting up my business. I'm going to be a consultant, and the only thing I'm going to do is consult and, do the high-level strategy plans and all that sort of things. It takes yourself to get a bit of outside of your comfort zone and say, I see that opportunity. I see that demand for something I'm not doing yet. Should I pursue this direction?
See, I see that more as a reactive adjustment to opportunity, because you're absolutely right. I mean, as a business coach, the conventional advice would be put a plan in place, build your business to that plan, and devise the strategy. And that's an important aspect of building a business. But I guess what you're describing is, we get going with what we like. Opportunities, you call them happy accidents, but actually they're market opportunities have come your way, and you've adapted, and then you put the strategy in place to enable that adaptation to happen. And I guess businesses need to do a little bit of both, don't they? They need to be
absolutely
planning and reactive at the same time.
I was going to say, it's just not a matter of saying yes to everybody and be willy-nilly about it. It's like, before you say yes, you actually look at it a little bit closely and say, can we do it? What do we need to put in place to do it? And do we see like the long-term value for the business in developing this? And we've done that a lot, and I think it's been most of the time valuable for us, but there's probably a couple, of false starts on some of those ideas, but it's been good. And, we've nurtured those opportunities as well. We've been very good at talking to everybody who wants to talk to us, even if it was obvious that what we offer at the time was not something they needed, but just to understand where the market is going, what are, what do they see as their need now and their need in the future, and whether we would align at some point. And that takes a lot of time, and it's sometimes frustrating to have lots of discussion that leads to nowhere. But I enjoy this discussion, and they created those happy accidents in the end.
But again, that's another example of well, you're almost describing it as something that you're doing because you want to be aware, but a lot of business owners do not pay enough attention to what's happening in their market and what's happening around them. And the sector that you work in is very volatile. It changes very quickly. Technology changes, people's buying habits and interests change. So it actually makes strategic sense to be having these conversations and looking ahead. So what do you do to sort of encourage and support other businesses perhaps to get up and get started? Because I know that's an interest of yours, a passion of yours.
So I'm a big fan of crowdfunding. This is something that I've seen being very successful. There's an interesting element with crowdfunding where, if you're successful, it's amazing because you had that idea, product, different things you wanted to put together, and you bring it forward. You ask your audience, players for a game, or a tech geek for whatever gadgets you want to put together or anything like that, and the answer is positive. Like, they prove that your idea is valid. The other side of that coin, which is sometimes depressing but might be as valuable, is if it fails, then you don't fail at the same stage as if you had tried to launch on the market with all your product already manufactured, or most of your game already done, and then what do you do from there? You can take lessons from failing on crowdfunding. Did you fail because your marketing was not strong enough? Did you have the audience? Did you fail because there's no market for your product? Can you pivot your product? Can you change it? There's some wonderful success stories on crowdfunding. So one of the most famous one, which is not in video games, is called The Coolest Cooler, which is a smart cooler that you bring to the beach, right? And it's smart because it has a battery, so you can plug your phone into it and have like a music coming from the cooler. You can charge your phone and all this. And the first time around they did their crowdfunding campaign, I think they tried to raise $50,000 and they failed. And the second time around, I think they changed the total they were looking for. And they asked for a bit less, but they also worked better on the marketing of it. I could go into details, but mostly timing.
Yep.
And they went to raise $20 million. And from an initially failed campaign, they turned it into a very successful campaign. A few years ago, that's where I would stop the story, but then they also like grew too much and they couldn't deliver everything, and that was another problem, another lesson to learn.
Yeah.
But the ability to take something that's formed in your mind but not completely validated and do a partial risk is very valid on crowdfunding. And I say partial risk because you can fail. A lot of people fail on crowdfunding, but failing is so much better to fail at that stage than further down the road. And successful campaigns is even better, right? It's it takes you to maybe becoming like a full line of product that commercialized, that goes into retail and all sorts of things like that. That's a great opportunity. And so this is something I feel very passionate about. I work a lot with crowdfunding campaign creators. I'm very involved into the community. I look at data and stuff like that. But one of the reasons is because I think it's it's very good for the creators. And I think on the other side of the equation, the people who back this project also like the idea of, I was there first. I helped their first steps. And when you fail, they're sad with you. They are not like, oh, this project sucks because nobody wanted it. They tend to support you going as part of the experience. And when you succeed, they are your best fans. They will support you because they have that I was there moment on the project lifecycle.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, it aligns with what you were discussing in the first part of this podcast as well about, looking up for opportunities to become available and then having the courage to take those. And I think obviously if you're helping businesses think differently about how they can get started and look at crowdfunding, it's with the same kind of mentality. It's the same kind of philosophy that you're bringing to it, which is absolutely fascinating. So, Thomas, I think I would describe you as somebody who has a slightly different balance between the pre-planning, getting a business up and running, and the ongoing planning that allows itself to happen because of the opportunities that come your way. And it's clear that you enjoy what you do and you're passionate about it. So it's been fascinating talking to you today, and thank you for your time.
Oh, it was a pleasure. Thank you.